Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Friday, September 6th. Derek Van Riper, Eno Saris here with you. On this episode, we discuss at least one quiet hero of this 2024 fantasy baseball season so far. Reynaldo López had a great start against the Rockies. We'll dig into what he has accomplished this year and maybe try to figure out what is next for him as a starter as he continues down this path in his career. We're going to talk about a mailbag question around Endgame lineup decisions and dig into why some of that is so difficult because you're chasing multiple categories and you got different players on your team that might be stronger in that area or weaker in that area, but they might be the better player with the better schedule. So we'll talk about how we try and problem solve those situations. I've got some other mailbag questions, including one, a follow-up to something you said last week, wondering why you prefer Jackson Jobe by as wide of a margin to Kumar Rocker, as you suggested. Also going to get to our weekend waiver wire preview as well. How's it going for you on this Friday, Eno?
I'm doing well. I'm going to the A's game tonight. And it's really kind of melancholy in Oakland, of course. So I've spent a lot of time sort of morosely looking onto the field being like, wow. Like yesterday or Wednesday when I was there, I had this thought. I was like, it's kind of weird to be at a place that you've gone to repeatedly for 14 years and know you may never go back to that place.
Right. But then it may actually get just completely like bulldozed.
Like, will they get bulldozed? Like, I was like, will the Ballers play here? Like, I was like, would I come back for a Ballers game? Like, I was just like, like this. It's just it's kind of weird. It's like I guess it has some things in common with like when you graduated school and you're like, am I gonna be back?
Yeah, I guess like for high school, I don't think I've gone back for anything.
Yeah.
College, I've lived in the same town for most of the last 20 years that I went to college in. So I'm on and off
around it
around campus all the time.
My campus.
So that part, so I only know it from graduating high school. I had that exact thought. I remember we did this thing called Project Graduation where everybody hangs out the night of graduation. The idea, I think, is to keep everyone from getting drunk and getting in trouble. So you hang out in the school and just spend time with your friends. And, they let you out of the building at 6 o'clock in the morning or something to go home and get some sleep. I remember walking out of there going,
or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of like a lock-in, and they do a bunch of fun stuff. They had like an illusionist and a bunch of stuff for us to do. It was fun. So I walk into my car and I'm thinking like, how many of these people am I going to see again? And I was starting to kind of like count through. I'm like, I got like a really close group of friends. I'll see most of them later this summer and probably for the next 50 summers and forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, I don't know if I'm ever coming back into this building ever again. And I feel great about that. Just ready to be done with it.
This one's missing that last bit.
Yeah.
It's like
bittersweet.
Jeez. Because you also establish relationships with, security guards and PR people and radio people. And like, they'll come and play the Giants. So, I'll probably see them, but it's not the same thing. It's a lot of that. It's that same energy, except the last little bit is melancholy instead of like, I'm going into the world.
I'm moving on to bigger and better things.
Just losing a part of my life.
Yeah, well, it's a bummer. But yeah, still a few more weeks left. If you haven't been to the Coliseum, you can get a chance to catch a game there. Still a handful of series left. They close out the final week of the season with the first part of the week. They finished the year on the road this year. So if you're planning some kind of impromptu trip, just know you can't go on the last weekend of the season to see.
And also, I would avoid the last series if you can. So I'm taking my children to say goodbye this weekend. So we're going tomorrow, and that'll be the last game they go to because the last game is already sold out completely. I think that last series will be a cluster F. So
it could get a little hairy.
I guess I'm going to cover it because, I got to be there, but I'm not taking the kids and doing the whole thing.
The vibes will be very different, I think, in the very last series, just for all of the reasons. By the way, if you'd like to join our Discord, you could do that with the link in the show description. I saw someone asking in the live hive yesterday how to do that. That's where the link is every time, no matter where you watch or listen to the show. Let's get going with the unsung quiet heroes of 2024. I thought about this coming off of an 11 strikeout performance against the Rockies. He didn't get the win, But Reynaldo López has been fantastic. He is now 17th in the Fangraphs player rater among pitchers, one spot behind Corbin Burns, just the way we all drew it up. And even when we think back to the later part of draft season, we had a handful of starters who had been in the bullpen last year. Jordan Hicks, AJ Puck, who was great during spring training. Lopez was in this group. We were kind of wondering, what is it going to look like from a workload perspective? And I think my most optimistic expectation for Lopez, who I did get on a couple of teams this year, was he's been a starter before. So you don't have to worry about a hard stop for innings quite the same way you might for Hicks or even Puck, who just had gone a long time without getting to that workload. And also because of age, I felt like there was this chance that Atlanta would just say, let's just let it happen. Let's just see what he brings to the table. There was also this idea that maybe just getting away from the White Sox and just getting into a new organization was going to help. So as I started to dig into Reynaldo López for 2024, just to see what's different in his arsenal, for me, it just looks like the increased use of his curveball. Having two breaking balls that hitters have to think about seems like it's unlocked a lot for him, because he was really a heavy four-seam slider guy previously with the occasional third or fourth offering. But even just getting that curveball usage up to the low double-digit range, that seems like it's changed quite a bit for his fortunes as a member of a rotation.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We when we looked at all relievers making the conversion, we found the number was around 5 points of stuff plus. I'm wondering if we need to redo that because A, the sample wasn't a lot, and B, you have somebody like Lopez dropping 30 points of stuff plus. And yet it has really worked for him because it's a full 3-pitch mix. And I think also because he's showing, the second best command of his career as judged by Location Plus and a decent walk rate. Those aren't things that were true of him the first time he was a starter. I think command sort of turfed him a little bit the first time. This time, the command hasn't been a problem. And he's maybe retained a good amount of velocity, 95.7 still, which is decent for a starter. I would say there is a fair amount of luck involved in what he's doing right now. You look at his left on base percentage right now in particular, it's 87%. That average for him has been 73%, 73.6, and that's an average that he accrued as a starter. And starters generally have higher lower left on base percentages. If you look at the career leaders, they're all relievers. So the career leaders for left on base percentage are Clayton Kershaw at 79, Jacob deGrom at 79, Brandon Woodruff at 78. And so like if you are a top starter, you can expect to live maybe in the high 70s, but 87% is far beyond that. So I would expect some regression there next year. I might expect a little bit of regression in the walk rate next year. I'm wondering if you'll be a little overdrafted next year, honestly. Because if you say that his walk rate is a little bit tenuous and the strand rate's going to change, and he's got the same Sierra now as he did relieving last year, Reynaldo Lopez, 375. If you're saying, he's going to be a 375, ERA pitcher next year, I think he's going to be drafted better than that.
Yeah, I could see people being too aggressive, but I could also see some hive mind creeping in where the concerns you just outlined, which are all very real, like completely wash over the things that are working, right? And I think that could, it might depend on the leagues you're in. There might be public leagues, Yahoo ESPN leagues where Lopez, because of what he did this year, is overdrafted. But then like in industry leagues, the consensus view might be, it was a lot of luck. And I do think you're right to call out the strand rate in particular. Like that is one area where you say, okay, how is he outperforming expectations in ERA by this much? That's a big part of it. If you're getting lucky with runners on base in those situations, especially, that could take a run probably off the ERA. Even if he was at a 3 instead of a 204 right now, he'd still be having a great year. And I was blown away too, looking at the player rater, that he's only got 8 wins on a really good Atlanta team, and he's pitched well enough to have more than that. So he'd be higher in that player rater with even normal wins luck. So maybe some of what he'll give back in ratios in terms of value in 2025, he'll have to be able to offset by getting just a few more wins on the ledger, just by simply being on a good team or a team that performs even higher at a higher level than expected compared to what it did this year.
I guess they're not letting him go super deep into games. That's been part of the way they've limited his innings. He has averaged 5 1/3 per start.
Great bullpen too. So they
right.
It fits the model of how the team's built too.
But maybe that might change in year 2. I mean, because they'd be like, well, now you have more innings, so maybe we'll let you go deeper into games.
Yeah. I mean, I guess look at this. Like, he's had 3 starts all season where he's failed to complete 5 innings. So 20 out of 23 starts, he's been eligible for a win. That's
right. And
about as good as anybody you're going to find. Most guys are good.
I guess maybe done in just by some poor injury luck on the batting side for the Braves.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm into it because I've got him a few places. I want to see what the price is. If you're being drafted like an SP5 or an SP6,
I'm a little more into trying to find the next one.
Yeah, of course.
I'm a little worried that this, they sometimes things like this, like big innings jumps and stuff, come calling the next year, so sometimes they come in the same year. Jordan Hicks, arm fatigue, shoulder fatigue, whatever it is. He's sort of fallen off after a good beginning. But I definitely, after this year, am more open. I know it didn't work out for everybody, but we had success stories in Crochet, Reynaldo, López, and I call Jordan Hicks a success story because you got value out of him for half the season, and then you probably just dropped him. Like in most leagues, it's fine. You didn't really get a lot of the worst stuff.
It just depends on how long you were using him when it wasn't working. If you absorbed all the damage that he started to accrue after getting surplus value.
But you could have watched his velo and sort of seen a lot of that coming.
There were warning signs, and you brought him up. You were flagging that on the show. So hopefully people were able to sidestep some of that and get the best parts of the season.
The ones that didn't work. AJ Puck?
Puck was a no-go. Crochet is like a success story to the point of it makes you wonder if the A's would try it with Mason Miller.
Right.
That's what it made me think of last time we talked about
my guy
Miller.
Is Griffin Jacks. And so what's interesting is if López went down like 20 points. If that's the amount that stuff plus that Jacks would lose, he can still do it. He's got 134 right now, So if he dropped 25 points, he'd still be that'd be good stuff plus for a starter. The location plus for Jacks has been through the roof for 3 straight years, and now he has like a legit 4-pitch mix. I think he's got 5-pitch mix really. So I think Jacks could be a starter. The other one I had is Pearson. If you want to get ahead of things, Pearson has been pitching in multiple innings, and he hasn't really shown the split finger, but supposedly he has a split finger. If he does, that's a chance for 5 pitches himself. The command is more of a question, but López, his command was a question, and he's been great. And so those are my 2 names that I think I've got circled for next year as possible starter conversions.
Here's the other question I have for you with López. For 2025, if we're drafting today and we're assuming a reasonable price, we'll say the pick 150, 175 range. Would you rather have to roster Reynaldo López or Ronel Blanco? Because I think some of the questions we have about López also exist for Ronel Blanco, and I think there's even fewer seasons of
Blanco's a conversion.
Record. Yeah, he's made 7 starts, 17 appearances last year, so this is his first year as a full starter. Big innings increase, right? 52 at the big league level last year, 148 1/3 so far this year. He actually threw 73 1/3 at AAA last year, though, so it's not that much of a leap.
I'm taking López for a few boring reasons. I mean, his Sierra is a half run better than Blanco's. His strikeout rate is better. Those aren't,
boring reasons.
Yeah, reasons. There's still reasons. Yeah.
Why don't you punch a wall? Because it hurts. That's a good reason. Boring reason, but a good reason.
Yeah, right. It's a boring reason.
So it's good enough. I think they're going to be handled somewhat similarly, though, because of the track record control concerns. But I would agree. I think Lopez's skills are a little bit more tidy at this point of their respective careers. Let's move on to a mailbag question we received from the Morrow brothers. We saw them out at First Pitch Arizona last year. Hopefully we'll meet a bunch of you this year at First Pitch Arizona. I believe today, September 6th, is another registration date cutoff as far as a discount goes. So you want to jump in and do that over at baseballhq.com if you haven't registered for the conference already. But the Morrow brothers are in a very close race for first place in their NFBC league, and they're in a common situation right now, trying to make up a small amount of ground in homers and steals. And we're going to broaden their question to kind of cover just general rotisserie leagues. How do you make your micro lineup decisions when you're chasing multiple categories? Their example is they've got Matt Wallner, Joe Adell, and Parker Meadows, and they're trying to use a combination, I think, of two of them in their lineup, doing the best they can in power and speed. So, like, what factors are you looking at in this instance? How deep into the weeds are you going trying to decide like which of those players is the better play? I mean, I think that trio for us, I think we both look at Wallner and say he's the best player of the three. So Wallner probably gets a spot, and then you're choosing.
There's also a boring reason behind that. He's left-handed.
He's left-handed. Yeah.
So, as boring as that is, I'm going to start with the left-hander that is hitting the snot out of the ball. And then, that means that Parker Meadows is probably in second place on this list because, again, left-handed, not hitting the snot out of the ball like Wallner, but hitting the ball a lot better since he came back, and a dual threat for homers and stolen bases. In fact, aside the grand slam last night off of Robert Suarez aside, I think he really is reopening our eyes to being like, okay, this is a legitimate prospect for next year, and any improvements he can make in contact rate and power are going to take him out of that 230 territory into something that could be way exciting next year. Somebody that could hit 250, 2020, 25, 25 even, and kind of emerge as a kind of a sleeper for us next year. He's doing it also in a time when people are not paying as much attention. They're starting to pay attention to football lineups. So Meadows is one of those guys that could sneak under the radar, have a great September, and be someone you should have circled next year, and also maybe not enter the hype machine as hard as others. So because his projections are still pretty, like 225, 300 OBP, league average power, that's not going to get a lot of people's attention as is. So anyway, I would focus on the left-handed thing first because that's going to affect playing time, and playing time is king. To hit a home run or to steal a stolen base, you have to be in a lineup that's, again, a boring, dumb thing to say, but it is true. But the one wrinkle I would put on it, because there are going to be days when you're like, in this next 4 games, Parker Meadows sees, a lefty, and Wallner sees a lefty, and, Joe Adell, who he mentioned, sees, 2 or 3 lefties, and he's the righty. And you're like, well, this could be one of those times. What do I do now? And I think in those situations, one thing I would do is look at the pitchers they're facing and try to have some idea of if they're facing somebody that gives up a lot of stolen bases, because the pitcher is the one that gives them up mostly, I believe. Corbin Burns has allowed 38 stolen bases this year. And is atop the leaderboard. Mitch Keller, 25. That can be a little bit hard because it's just one guy. You're like, am I going to put Joe Adell on the schedule because he's going to face Corbin Burns and might get a stolen base? That's not super, super exciting. But you can start to see some duos. Mackenzie Gore and Patrick Gordon are both left-handers, but they're 4th and 5th in stolen bases allowed. Marcus Stroman and Carlos Rodon are in the top 25, both of them. Jason Adam, Matt Waldron on the Padres are in the top 15. So you've got top 25. So you've got little pairings, Palante and Gray. Or if you want to be a little bit more blunt, you can go over to the team side. You do team stolen bases allowed. The Giants, 138. Bailey's been hurt, so I don't know if that's relevant here. The staff has been a lot of different people too. I really kind of believe in this Cardinals one. I said Palante and Gray. Cardinals have allowed 133 stolen bases. They've got Wilson Contreras, who's aging behind the plate. I could see that being a real number there that I might target. The Washington Nationals, 6th with 118. We know Gordon Corbin are on that list. So you can kind of do something there. It looks like you spotted this, but it looks like you should not target the Royals if you want to start stolen base. They have allowed 50 stolen bases. The Giants have allowed 138.
The gap between the Royals and the Tigers is 33 steals.
Yeah, that's the Tigers are the second worst. Yeah,
right. And the gap between the Tigers and a team that's 30 away from them would put them in the top 10. Like that's how that's how good the Royals have been at controlling the running game, which I think probably deserves some kind of deep dive of its own at some point. But yeah, I mean, run suppression is part of how they're getting there, and not giving away free bases in a league where it's easier to just take them. That
Cole
kind
Reagan's
of matters.
Allowed 8. He's a lefty. He's good. Seth Lugo's a righty, but 5. He I guess he has that kind of a slide steppy thing, right?
Yeah.
Wow, just nobody there is allowed more than double digits.
Yeah, but your top 5 for picking on teams: Giants, Cardinals, Pirates, Rangers, Marlins, all have allowed 120 or more steals. Not far behind, you got the Nats, the Astros, the White Sox, Atlanta, and the Reds. So there's plenty of teams you can run on right now, but just if you're kind of finding those tiebreaker matchup things, that's probably what you're looking for once you get past the lefty, righty, righty, lefty. How much playing time is there? How many games are on the schedule? It is looking more at factors like this. On the power side, maybe you're just double checking the park factors, making sure that if schedules are equal and matchups are similar, you're just putting the guy in who's got the better environment to hit a home run, or you look at the team that yields more as a group, maybe the team with the weaker bullpen. It's like that time of year where you have to start thinking more like you're building a DFS lineup than you do for most of the season, because you're not playing the long game anymore. You're kind of playing the micro game, just trying to get every possible inch.
I've got the schedule. If you go over to teams on Fangraphs, there's a schedule tab, and you can just see, all the pitchers they're facing. I've got that. I've had that open for about a month now, where I've been a lot more involved in that situation. So I would also say generally that I think that stolen bases are more chaotic. I mean, if you heard me reading through, and you've got these like duos, but like, okay, you can say that the Giants give up a ton of stolen bases, but Hayden Birdsong doesn't. Blake Snell's not as bad as Logan Webb. And then there's a 3-person series, right? You're only going to see 3 starters in a series. So you might just hit all the ones that don't give up stolen bases. So it's harder to brute force looking for stolen bases than it is for home runs. I think home runs, you can be like, oh, they're in Cincinnati. But for stolen bases, even though Cincinnati's in the top 10 for allowed, what if you just got the 3 starters that were good at it, and they have a rotation where you don't even know what the Cincinnati rotation is? It's easier to say, you know what? I don't know what the Cincinnati rotation is, but it's probably not going to be that good. So, because they're all hurt. So I'm going to put my guy in for homers than it is to say that whoever's coming up is definitely going to give up stolen bases. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Here's a trivia question for you. Hopefully you don't have this tab open right now. I'm sure you have this tab open. Hopefully it's not in front of you.
I'm not going to look at it.
Which 5 teams have allowed the most homers this year? Who's in the top 5?
Okay, I am going to go with Parks, and then I know that the Reds had good pitching at the beginning of the season, but I'm going to put the Reds on there.
They're 9th, strike 1.
Dang. I I'm just gonna put the Rockies on. I know it's not like it doesn't inflate them, but it's a bad
They're
stat.
number 2. That's your first one. 185.
I'm gonna take another stab. Nope, I'm not gonna do that. I don't think I'm gonna do that. Angels
are 10th. Strike 2.
No. They've been good, but it's a park that you can hit homers in. Nationals.
No, the Nationals are 26th.
I was gonna say Yankees. I'm strike 3. I'm out. Who was up there?
The Blue Jays are number 1 at 191.
Blue Jays.
191. The Rockies are second. You got them at 185. The Rays are at 181.
Whoa.
The White Sox, I mean,
I should have said White Sox.
180.
It's a park and a staff that's bad.
Here's the other surprise: the Dodgers, 175. The Dodgers.
Well, I think that's more park, but also they've been running through arms.
Yeah.
That park has been surprisingly homer friendly over the last few years.
Yeah. Flip side of this one, at the bottom, Atlanta has only allowed 130. Kansas City at 132. So good at suppressing homers and steals as a staff. So
that was like a whole thing online I just did not want to take part in. I mean, the weird thing about Kansas City, which we've talked about before, is that it like inflates offense generally, but it deflates homers.
The boring reason is I think there's space.
Yeah, it's
the
hard
wall's
to cover
further
all the
away, so it's hard to hit a home
Yeah.
run, which means there's space for the ball to land. That's not a home run. That's in play.
It's sort of what true in Coors Field too. They made the outfield big. Yeah,
this is how it works. A lot of boring explanations, simple explanations to things today.
But this one included like Eric Hosmer making fun of somebody online, and I just was like, for so many reasons, I don't want to be involved in this.
Oh, he's still doing that. Okay.
Yeah, he's still
hasn't grown up out of that yet.
Still a dick.
Cool. Keep it going.
One little thing on park factors real quick. I heard that Seattle is considering changing the batter's eye, which will be of a certain amount of expense and of indeterminate value. So that'll be interesting to see what happens coming out of that. If it does happen, how much do you think you'll change your projections or thoughts of Mariners hitters?
Well, if the same people who are building the lineup right now are building the lineup this winter, maybe only a little, because it should help. I mean, it predates the DePoto Hollander front office, right? It's not just their fault. So, but like to some degree, like shouldn't they have had a plan that would have worked? Like I think it's still a bit of a open question. Like, how good are they at evaluating hitters, and how much has that been obscured by the park, right?
And the person I was talking to was like, yeah, like batter's eyes are different everywhere. He was like, what about the fake rocks in Anaheim? Like, is anybody complaining about the batter's eye there?
Yeah, there's other factors, and we've seen it. We've talked about it several times where the park boosts strikeouts. It helps the pitchers. It hurts the hitters. Like, okay. But if it is the salt content in the air and it actually isn't that much about the batter's eye, I mean, you're not going to desalinate the air. Right. So, one cautious step towards expecting more from Mariners hitters, but really aiming more at the top end of the pool, guys like Julio, and not necessarily chasing the mid-round, late-round guys the way I have been in the past and getting burned by not learning my own lesson, I guess is the simple answer there. Thanks a lot for that question, Mark. Got one more here from Joe. This one came in via email. Joe wanted to know about the differences between the major league ball and the minor league ball. And Joe's son actually was a bat boy in Binghamton. So what happens is when major league pitchers are on rehab, they use a major league ball. And when minor league pitchers are pitching, they use a minor league ball. And seeing the two baseballs side by side, feeling them, you can tell there's a pretty significant difference. The lace patterns, Joe didn't have a scale to weigh the balls, but in this case, like we know they don't use the same ball in the minors they do in the majors. What are the current differences, and in what ways do you think that could actually create different problems? Because using different balls obviously will lead to some sort of different results. Yeah.
It's I did confirm with a major league pitching coach that the balls are different. The balls are the same in AAA.
Same at AAA. Okay.
And then different at the different levels. The reasoning, I think, is just that the other ones are made cheaper, and there's a bunch of levels of minor leagues, and they just want to save some money making balls for all those other levels of minor leagues. And the upshot is that the major league ball, I think that the seams are a little bit lower. It's a little bit kind of tighter. And it brought, like, I've talked to pitchers who talked about, like, the first time that they, played with a major league ball and they like brought the ball up, like, it just, like, they just lost it, like, went straight up. Like, when the pitcher, like, taking it back of the arm, like, just went straight up instead of, keeping it. So, yeah, it's a little bit harder to hold on to. It does have ramifications for pitch movement, and something that I have not yet studied with the limited sample of single A guys that we have, and may be relevant to another mailbag question we have later about Jackson Jobe, because we have high A data for him. But generally, if the seams are lower, they're going to move less. Yeah, I guess it would mean that would be a downward force on, like, Stuff Plus, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you had higher seams, you could get more movement out of it. That increases drag and increases movement. So it's something to think about. It's not something that's going to be easily answered unless we had a lot of both balls. Maybe somebody like Barton Smith, who's studied seam shifted wake, would be somebody I could ask about this and learn a little bit more. But it's definitely a thing. And it's just another reason why AAA is kind of a fun thing for us, is that we get that data, and we get data on with the major league ball. And then the reason why they do it with the major leaguers on rehab is just those major leaguers want to practice with the materials they're going to use later. So.
Yeah, I wish we could get to the point where we could just manufacture the same ball at a cost that the league was willing to pay, and just let every player use the same ball for the consistency. Just, like, why have to go through that process? I mean, literally having a ball slip out of your hands because the seams are lower, like that seems suboptimal, especially when you're trying to command things and not hit people with them, like all important things. But if you're getting,
I guess it's an interesting thing to think about Bobby Miller, where the command of the minor league levels looked fine. It looked fine, even last year, but maybe, I don't know. The another thing that sort of popped in my head is I never want to, like, cost human beings jobs, but, like, it seems like at some point we might be able to automate this. I mean, we can do a lot of crazy things now that we couldn't do before. You want to ask AI to do something, maybe automate this process, because as much as I love human beings, a lot of this is about that labor cost, and also just the cost of the difference ball to ball and batch to batch is sort of a human thing.
Yeah, but I've seen AI try to generate images of human hands, and it can't. So if you think it's going to make a round, consistent baseball that's fit for use, I think you have overestimated AI's current ability. Maybe the future ability will be there, but yeah, it's a good question, and more to unpack. I mean, I think if we had AA stuff numbers and AAA stuff numbers side by side,
we could kind of study it a little bit easier.
You'd see some shifts. You'd say, oh, stuff numbers dip a little bit. Other factors you could really granularly drill down into and understand how those things are different. And I wonder how much of it is you just make an adjustment and you kind of get the same stuff back eventually, and how much of it is you can't actually replicate what you were doing completely. Like, there's probably some stuff that is easier to correct and adjust for than others. Got a good question here from Sierra 6, who listened to the episode last week and is wondering why you prefer Jackson Jobe a lot more than Kumar Rocker at this point.
It's an easy one, and it's the bias that I've been talking about, the bias I've been sort of self-inspecting for a while and trying to figure out if it's a good bias or not, which is a bias towards good four-seam fastball shape. Kumar and Jackson Jobe both throw hard. Kumar's fastball is not it's not a ride ball, and I don't know, if that is a good bias, especially because after sticky stuff enforcement, what we found is less ride across baseball, fewer of those like kind of elite ride balls, and a real emphasis across baseball on unique pitch shapes. But even in that case, Kumar's fastball gave me a little bit of the Rhett Lauder feeling of, somebody that should throw a sinker. I got a little bit of that vibe from Kumar Rocker's fastball. And maybe he'll eventually throw the sinker and the four seam would be really good. And his numbers are eye-popping. In terms of injury, I think they're evenish. I mean, Kumar had the TJ. He seems healthier now. Jackson Jobe has kind of had trouble like staying healthy. Hasn't put up a bunch of innings, but hasn't had that big surgery just recently. So I think
I'd give Jackson Jobe the slightly better health grade. Like not having Tommy John is preferable to.
I think so.
Far as you,
so slightly better health grade, slightly longer track record of minor league dominance, and then a better fastball shape. I think when you add that all up, it becomes a little bit more. It's not like he's way better at everything. It's just like a little bit better here, a little bit better here, a little bit better here. All together, I'm preferring pretty easily.
Yeah, and the injuries for Jobe these last couple of seasons, last year lumbar spine, inflammation, I think is what they officially called it. Not a major thing. Hamstring this year, so it
reminds me of Tatis had this one injury when he was coming up that they said was actually just will happen with like someone who's like still growing but a professional athlete, like really young professional athletes. That reminds me of like what Jackson Jobe's going through. Like he's 22 and he throws the ball super, super hard. So his body is still trying to like figure out how to like do that in a healthy manner. So,
yeah. Thanks for the question. Sierra 6, you've got future questions for us. Drop those in the Discord or send us an email, ratesandbarrels@gmail.com. We've got a follow-up on a segment we started a few weeks ago. We were looking for some players tracking towards 2025 jobs, and we got to like one outfielder. I think we had Yanquiel Fernandez from the Rockies organization. And I was digging around trying to find at least one, maybe two more names of players that are not heavily rostered in keeper and dynasty leagues, but have a chance to start early in 2025, if not even on opening day. And I landed on a name that you brought up, I think, for a prospect of the week segment a while back. Colby Thomas in the A's organization just continues to move through the system. Colby Thomas has split this season between AA and AAA. The weird thing here is that the strikeout rate has gone through the roof again. We saw a high strikeout rate at high A last season, 29.5%. At AA this year, that number went down to 18%, and now at AAA, it's back up to 30.2%. What do you make of Thomas? And thinking about the way the A's are built right now, having a few breakouts this year, but still probably having a soft enough depth chart in the outfield where someone like Thomas should be able to break through with an opportunity in early 2025, as long as that swing and miss problem we're seeing at AAA again is more the function of ABS and less the function of major holes that can be exploited.
Yeah, I think, I got a little bit of Seth Brown vibes where, I know he's a righty and Seth Brown's a lefty, but may have a slightly high strikeout rate. Maybe he can put together a good walk rate with it, as long as he hits the ball hard. He has hit the ball 110, which I like. I think he's younger than Seth Brown, so I'm assuming he's stolen bases. I'm assuming he's a little bit better in the field. Seth Brown was already sort of moving towards first base, and is currently kind of a first base / outfielder, but I guess just playing first base for them. I don't love Daz Cameron that much, and I think he profiles maybe as a backup center fielder. So there is a completely open outfield spot. If you think it's Bleday and Butler out there, there's pretty much an outfield spot that they will probably have an open competition for in spring training.
Yeah, I'm feeling old. Daz Cameron's 27 already. Jeez.
Yeah,
he's just breaking in.
he does some things nicely, but he's never, 67 WRC plus for his career and 397 plate appearances. I don't want to write him off, but and the max EV and the barrel rate are actually okay, but the strikeout rate's not good. And I don't know. I don't get great vibes off of these numbers. But anyway, he'll be in the mix. Seth Brown will be in the mix for out there because I do think Tyler Soderstrom is going to come back and take the first base job. Tristan Gray has played everywhere, and I don't know if his bat is good enough to play in the outfield, but he might be on the list. But I'm listing all these names, and Seth Brown is going to be 33 next year. Colby Thomas is the name I would like out of that group.
Yeah. I think as draft and hold season approaches and keeper and dynasty league decisions kind of come up and you want to stash someone, I think Thomas sort of stands out to me as one where the skills, the opportunity, it all might be aligned just perfectly. And he's not, he's not like Emmanuel Rodriguez. He's not like Roman Anthony where he's universally rostered in keeper in dynasty leagues either. He's actually available in some of those formats too. What's interesting, too, about the A's, you've got Brent Rooker having this ridiculous season, a 170 WRC plus. He might end up with 40 homers, got 35 already. He might go 40-10 this season, which is it's just absurd that Brent Rooker is going to put that together. Lawrence Butler's breakout looks very real. Strikeout rate's way down since he returned. He's down at 22.8% for the season. So,
yeah,
between Rooker, Butler, JJ Bleday has had that kind of skills consolidation.
They're doing it again. It's amazing. I think the currency in Oakland is this. They give longer chances to their guys. You think about the ups and downs that Bleday has done over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And then you think about in San Francisco, how they treated, Elliot Ramos and Luis Matos. Luis Matos came up and blew the doors off of the big leagues for like a month. And then he was in the minor leagues 2 weeks later. I think what they do in Oakland is they give guys who haven't had chances longer chances, not just 2-3 weeks. It's more like 2 months. And, lo and behold, I think they have a center fielder in Bleday. They have a right fielder in Butler. They have a second baseman. I think Geloff is going to get through this. He's showing signs already. Jacob Wilson may not hit for power, but he's going to make a lot of contact. And I think he's better than the Nick Allen, Max Schumann group that has come before him. So they have a shortstop. They have a catcher that's really good. I think Soderstrom's going to be, kind of a league average as first baseman. So what do they need? They need somebody to step forward in left field. And they need an ace. They need somebody to step forward in that rotation. Maybe they don't. Maybe they can just get along with, 5 number 3s or whatever. But that's the one thing I don't see from them. I think they do need to take a step forward on pitching development. And the Osvaldo Bido story is pretty good, but they need more successes like that.
Yeah, I think if you look at a lot of prospect lists for the A's, the first 6-7 guys you're going to see in that organization that are on those rankings, they're all position players. So that's where the gap is right now. It's finding good pitchers and developing good pitchers. And the park has always helped with that. But I think one thing that's going to be different, playing in San Francisco or playing in Sacramento instead of Oakland is going to change a lot about hey, we can throw these sort of mid back end starters. We could throw them because the park is cool and damp and pitcher friendly. Sacramento's not going to play like that.
I think people have said that the park factor for Sacramento is surprisingly like medium. It must be maybe a big outfield or something, because it's going to be 100 degrees at game time in the evening. There are going to be days like that.
It's going to be different than Oakland, to say the least. So I think that's going to change some things with pitching as well. I think the other tricky part of being the A's is now you've created this scenario where you don't have your permanent home yet. So are you going to attract even second tier free agents? Probably not. It's going to be a place people generally don't want to go. It's going to be more of this is my only offer, or maybe it's close to where I grew up sort of destination. And that's about it.
I wonder if it would actually make sense for them to trade a bat for an arm.
I think that's the way they're going to have to do it, is actually acquiring the pitchers that they need via trade as opposed to, developing them, at least as they're built right now. Maybe a few things could change, but that's the lag in the organization right now. Let's move on to our weekend waiver preview. Tommy Pham playing more again in Kansas City, getting out of St. Louis. Tommy Pham's always on the move.
Is it 7 teams in the last 2 years or 3 years?
Let's see if we can name them. Mets, Diamondbacks, White Sox.
Was he on the Reds?
If you go back a third year, I think so. But I think it was Mets and Diamondbacks last year.
Yeah.
And then White Sox, Cardinals, Royals this year. So 5 teams in 2 years. And then, if you go back to 2022, Reds and Red Sox.
Reds and Red Sox.
So seven teams in the last 3 seasons for Tommy Pham. Is he still viable in shallow leagues once the playing time kind of nudges back up? I mean, I think he's started every game since getting on that roster in Kansas City. So my assumption is it's probably just good enough to make the cut in 5 outfielder leagues if you're just looking for somebody who's playing a lot.
Who's losing their time? So they're okay. So they're playing Felix Fermin just as catcher, and Sal Perez is catcher first base with Gurriel behind him, and MJ Melendez is still starting most days. Is he? Like Melendez who's losing time for Pham?
So Melendez has played all 4 games that Pham has played. Pham has started 4 in a row in right field. Prior to that,
Renfroe is losing time.
Garrett Hampson and I think Tyler Gentry were playing in right field.
Yikes! Is Renfroe hurt or something?
Renfroe must be hurt because he was.
He just came back.
Yeah,
yesterday. So it is interesting to see what will happen because Renfroe's a righty, but Hampson and Gentry are barely major leaguers in my estimation. So, replacing those at bats made sense for the Royals. What will happen going forward? I think Freddie Fermin, 104 WRC plus, catcher, young. You're playing Sal Perez at first base. I think you use some Pham over Fermin, and I think Pham continues to play every day between the corner outfielders and DH.
Yeah, I think it's just enough to try and rely on him again. It's like right on that playing time cusp all the time for Tom.
You know what? It strikes me as like it's a little bit risky, and it strikes me a little bit like the Ramon Laureano situation.
Yeah, it's probably a good comp. I mean, they're leading
a right-hander that's like still playing and like plays, and you're just like, when will they stop playing?
This is the situation where seeing the Royals leading Tommy Pham off makes me think that they value his bat over a few of those other options they've been mixing and matching, and that they'll prioritize him. So even if it's not every day, maybe it's an 85 or 90% share. Yeah. I think it's just enough. The other veteran player who's back in the mix right now that I'm really not sure what to do with is Anthony Rizzo. He's not heavily rostered. I think he's 33% rostered in CBS leagues, 28% in the RotoWire Online Championship. That's the NFBC 12-team format. We just haven't seen a healthy and productive Rizzo since the concussion last year. Like, who are you looking at on the corner on your roster right now, and then looking at Rizzo and saying Rizzo's an upgrade? Like, who are the would you rathers right now? I know it's great to be part of that Yankees lineup and to hit in that park. It's just I have a lot of questions about whether or not he's actually still Anthony Rizzo after the injury.
By the Bat X at first base, Rizzo is not even on the first page. Jesus. Gosh, 41st first baseman going forward, behind Luke Raley and Juan Yepez. Okay, well, I would take Rizzo over Yepez. I take Rizzo over Drury. Would you take Rizzo over Lamont Wade Jr.? Supposedly a $7 difference between them.
I think I'd take Lamont Wade Jr.
Seth Brown.
Maybe Rizzo because of the park. That's probably
Rowdy.
Where the line is.
Rowdy. So
I think I'd take Rizzo over Rowdy.
Okay, so he's the 30th best first baseman, maybe, Rizzo.
Yeah, all right. So if you're in a 15-team league and you need help on the corner and you've got one of those names we mentioned or someone worse, then that's where the move is.
Some of the first basemen ahead of him are available other places. So if we put Steer somewhere else, if we put Paredes at third, if we put Cronenworth at second, Gio Urshela at third, and David Fry at catcher, we can sneak Rizzo into the top 25.
Gio Urshela's projected to do more than
Yes.
that. Doesn't I'd take Rizzo over Urshela. That's
okay. So we'll sneak him into the top 25. So like he's a 15 team CI.
Yeah, I think you got to be careful. You got to be in a pretty dire situation in more shallow formats to be excited about Rizzo, but he's back nonetheless. Hopefully he's healthy. There is opportunity there. They need a solution at first base, as we've seen during the time that he's been out. I think we asked a similar question about Spencer Torkelson last week or 2 weeks ago, but what are you doing with Jordan Walker in shallow leagues? He started 5 of 6 before a day off on Wednesday. Is he back in the mix for shallow and mid-sized leagues now that the Cardinals seem to be somewhat committed to giving him a look down the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, the nice 5 for 5 home run game has got me interested. 5 for 5 in Yankee Stadium with a home run and a stolen base and 3 RBIs. Like, I'm on board. Like, he's one of those guys where like, I used up all my fab. I have $30 fab. And I need to find a power hitter for $5 out of 1,000. I'd go for it.
All right. So if you were in the scenario you described earlier, you're scraping by with a Ramon Laureano as your last outfielder, you'd actually look at Walker and say, that's probably a little more here that I trust in terms of
I think
role
just
and
in
skills.
terms of like, it's a little bit more like if I'm in 4th place, like scraping it out against 3rd, like I'm a little bit more likely to maybe stick with Laureano. But if I'm in 5th and I need to 6 points to get into the top 3, like why not try Walker? Like Laureano's just going to do a little bit here, a little bit there, and he might lose playing time because Jared Kelenic is right there. Like at least Walker is playing.
Yeah, the Cardinals have to figure this out. Like, it would be weird if they didn't give him near everyday time the rest of the season, but the way they've handled Jordan Walker so far has been pretty surprising to me. So I guess I shouldn't expect too much in that regard.
There is a young player on the middle infield who's playing every day and has decent plate skills and power and steals bases. Nobody likes him. Nick Gonzalez.
Yeah, Nick Gonzalez is playing a lot.
He's playing every day, and he's made a swing change in the minors this year that has ported over. Even though his swinging strike rate is still pretty high, with this new swing change, he's somehow been able to keep from striking out as much as he used to. So if he's a true talent, 22, 23% strikeout guy with a 110 max EV, 8% barrel, none of this stuff leaps off the page. I don't think he has star potential, but above average second baseman with power and speed, I think that's on the table for him.
Yeah, I still see him more as an NL only guy right now, less of a 15-team middle infielder. But if you are just chasing playing time, I think you're going to see that Nick Gonzalez is playing more than a lot of middle infielders available in those leagues right now. And the swing change at least gives you a reason to be a little more optimistic that he can exceed projection and do better than he's done up to this point. We are at the point in the year where you got to keep another close eye on rehab assignments wrapping up. You got Clark Schmidt coming back from a long stint this weekend. He's going to go Saturday against the Cubs. So in leagues where you can make first come, first serve moves and the main event, he's already 100% rostered, but there are places where he's still available. 45% rostered in the RotoWire Online Championship. I imagine Clark Schmidt is going to be one of the more popular pitchers added in September because he was pitching really well before going on the IL.
Yeah, and of course, I'm going over to my favorite spot, the Yankees schedule page. Schmidt at Cubs. 1, 2.
He's home against the Red Sox for the next one. So if you're in a weekly league,
they're calling
him
it
up
a
on
6-man
Sunday,
rotation.
Yeah, they're probably trying to not overwork Luis Heel.
Yeah. So versus Boston, I don't want him for that. I know that Boston's up and down, but I don't want him for that. And not at home against Boston. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at Oakland. Love it. And then finishes versus Pittsburgh. So 3 out of the 4 starts I want him for.
I think there are probably situations, though, too, where if ratios are pretty stratified.
Yeah, you just throw him against Boston.
Throw him against Boston anyway. Yeah, chase the win, chase the K. Like, I don't think he's so shaky skills-wise where I'm absolutely avoiding that matchup, but at least look at the alternative would be the way I would look at it. We got Jacob deGrom getting close to a return, too. It's so funny that the type of league you play in has a lot to do with whether or not he's actually available. Jacob deGrom is 75% rostered in CBS leagues, which is, hey, look, 25%
they have
of those
ILs.
leagues still out there.
They have
got
IL spots. Yeah.
Online championship and main event, 20 to 21%, right? And he won't be eligible in leagues unless he was drafted until he actually comes back and pitches this season. The way he's lined up right now, he's got a rehab start Saturday at AA Frisco.
So everybody check your NFC leagues to see if if he's available, if he was drafted there.
Right. Like you have to search him, make sure he wasn't drafted. If he's available, get him now because it'll be cheaper than when he comes back. If this start goes well, maybe the next start, middle of the week, ends up being in the big leagues. And then we're talking about him as a must-add next weekend. He threw 43 pitches in his last rehab start. So let's add 15, let's say high 50s, maybe 60 is possible.
I don't know.
Just add 15 each time. Do
you think he's going to get a win?
I think by the time he comes back, he might, because of that first start back in the majors. If it's the next one, would be he's like 75 pitches.
80.
Yeah. And he was topping out at 99.7.
Yeah. So if he just mows through the lineup and is super efficient and just gets to 5.
I'm into it. Like, so make sure he's not available in your league right now. And if you have to wait, I'd still be kind of excited to get a couple of starts from Jacob deGrom at the end of the season, because it looks like the stuff, at least from a velocity perspective, it's coming all the way back.
Happening at a perfect time for me in my 12-team dynasty where I've had him on the IL all year, and I'm in a bye right now. And look, I get Yamamoto and deGrom back just in time for the playoffs. Basically taking the Dodgers plan.
Hey, maybe it'll work. Maybe it carries you to a title. We'll see. Yeah. Brandon Sproat was pitching opposite deGrom in that last rehab start, by the way, and was touching 100 in that game. So
yeah, he's really taken off on people's radars. The numbers don't leave off the page for you in terms of AAA strikeout rate. But let me go to the shiny real quick. I don't think I've looked at his numbers with AAA.
I'd also love to know if Brandon Sproat does well at the top of the zone, gets to AAA, zone gets lowered, and then things are different for him too. Big fastball guy like that probably elevates it.
Here we go, Sproat. We've got a plus changeup and a plus slider and 94 stuff plus on a 97 mile an hour fastball. But it's not. It means it's not ideal shape. In fact, I'm looking at the IBB on it. It's not good. It's below average IBB.
Yeah. So when you were talking earlier about how much I would be interested in the Mariners, they've changed the batter's eye and maybe make the park better for hitters. I think the way I felt about the Mariners, where I'm cautious, like to say, like, oh yeah, it's just fixed. They fixed the batter's eye. I have the faith that the Mets, as they continue to build their pitching lab and retool things under David Stearns, might be able to take someone like Sproat, who has 2 above average secondaries, big velo on the fastball. They might be able to fix a fastball that's not perfect. That might be something they can do as an organization, or I'm at least willing to gamble on the possibility. So I think I'm really interested in Brandon Sproat right now.
The park does a lot for you. I mean,
that too.
The park is helpful. His location numbers are good, and he throws a fastball and a cutter. Although the cutter is 87 and the fastball is 97, so that's a gyro slider. And the slider that gets the good stuff plus is a sweeper. So it's a 4-seam gyro slider sweeper change situation. And with good location plus numbers on the 4-seam, at least I'm predisposed to liking him. And 3% sinkers, like maybe he starts throwing more of those and really becomes like a 5-pitch mix guy with command and velo, if not shape. I mean, if you can't tick every box normally. It's like you got to make some choices. And see, if he has velo, command, and a big arsenal and a good home park, it's like, okay, so his fastball doesn't have great shape. Maybe he'll still make it.
Yeah, like maybe he won't be a top 20 starter, but he'll be a really good 25 to 40 range starter. Those guys have plenty of value for us, so that would work out just fine.
The Christian Scott story tells us that they're doing something right in New York when it comes to pitching development, I think.
Yeah, I think so. DJ Hers gets Miami for a stream, not available in a ton of leagues, but about 30% of RotoWire Online Championships. I would just say, like, make sure you've you're not ignoring the possibility that hers is out there in your league. Casey Mize gets a streaming opportunity against the Rockies. That'll be at home. I think if you're in a deeper league, that's actually available in some places. I would consider it because of the quality of the opponent and because of the ballpark. And then you've got the Guardians with Matthew Boyd and Alex Cobb. Boyd's going to get the White Sox on the road, so that's going to just juice the roster rates all the way up. He's 31% rostered on CBS, 86% rostered already in the RotoWire Online Championship. Hard to argue with the results with Boyd. He's going to get the Dodgers between now and the time of that White Sox start, so the results might not look as good once that Dodger start happens. But a 20-5 strikeout to walk in 22 and 2/3 innings so far, you have to throw him against the White Sox, right? That's a layup for streaming, right?
Yeah. But Yu Darvish at Seattle is a nice one. I like that one.
Yeah, Darvish still out there in some leagues because of the lengthy absence he had.
I don't know if it's how much intestinal fortitude you have because Reed Detmers did not necessarily look that much better under the hood in his last start out. But he gets a 2-step against at Minnesota and Houston that at least puts him on my radar a little bit if you need the extra start.
Yeah, the 2-step guys you'll see Detmers coming back from the minors. You'll see probably Cater Montero in some of the more shallow leagues out there. Cade Povich gets 2 on the road against the Red Sox and Tigers.
I'm not. I mean, the Red Sox one scares me with that fastball of his.
It's a really tough 2-start streamer bucket. I think
Valente Belozo is at Pittsburgh, at Washington, but there's nothing that he does that I like. That's
worst skills, best matchups of the bunch, though.
Yeah.
So I think in that instance with those names, I might actually prefer Belozo the most of that group.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Again, situationally, if my ratios are already kind of dinged up anyway, it doesn't matter. Another one streamer, though, you do have Alex Cobb going against the Rays. I can't believe they're getting as much as they are out of Boyd and Cobb right now in Cleveland, but good for them.
Yeah, I think sometimes you take these one starters that might cost less and might actually get you a better shot at a win. I think Alex Cobb in Tampa maybe has a better shot at a win and a good start than both of those Beozos, even though like Beozo, like it's Pittsburgh and Washington, it's his Miami offense behind him,
Yeah. So, better than the 2 Detmers starts, given that the Twins and Astros have a ton to play for right now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That one, I don't think I could stomach actually. Now that I bring it up, I just wanted to put that on people's tables a little bit. Hayden Birdsong might get 2 at home, Milwaukee and San Diego. That again takes some fortitude, but at least he's home.
You're giving me a park and you give me a guy with stuff that I actually like, even though the results have been really inconsistent so far. So that's at least somewhat tempting in those deeper situations where Birdsong might be on the wire. We got to go. Eno's got a chat that's about to start up. You can get a subscription to The Athletic at theathletic.com.
Better get a cat GIF real quick.
Rates and barrels. Yeah, Eno's going to get the cat GIF fired up. I like GIF. He likes GIF, but hey, it works either way. You can find Eno on Twitter at Saris. Find me at Derek and Riper. Find the pod at Rates and Barrels. Thanks to Brian Smith for producing this episode. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Monday.
Thanks for listening.